Someone asked if I could do a video about my process for getting car insurance. And that's quite good timing because my car insurance is due at the beginning of February and I have been looking at how to get that cost down. So I started looking at my insurance the last week of December, which is 5 weeks before my insurance is due. Those of you who have been following my channel before this time last year may remember that I did a video about what happened with my insurance last year. So last year I was with eSure and I had renewed from the year before. The year before there had been an insurance premium of 200, I think it was something like £241, and I had renewed with them, and I had put my insurance on auto renew because as a standard that's what it is. And then last year when I had my insurance renewal through, it almost doubled my insurance. It was £470 for the renewal quote, which I was really shocked at. I know that insurance had been getting really high last year, but it's exactly the same policy. I haven't had any claims. There's no excuse for it being that high. So I went onto the comparison sites and found, so I looked at the quotes. I went on to Compare the Market, and the highest, cheapest quote for new insurance for me for last year was my insurance company, which is eSure. And it was for £313. But my insurance company, eSure, had quoted me £470. Now, I know that comparison sites somehow get preferential rates, but I thought that was a bit of a joke. So I contacted eSure, explained what I'd found, and they basically said, well, if you don't like it, don't renew. So I cancelled the auto renew and closed my policy so that I let it run to the end and then I didn't renew. And then I used the comparison site and bought the policy, the exact same policy, but through them for £313. On principle, I shouldn't have done it, but it was very much the cheapest quote and I needed to save the money. So last year, my insurance was £313 and I took off the auto renew. And at the time I started looking at insurance this year, I hadn't had my renewal quote through yet because as far as I'm concerned, eSure are not going to quote me the cheapest. So I started to look on Compare the Market, and the cheapest quote I had was £226 from Aviva. Now, I have two other policies with Aviva. I have my pension and my retirement stocks and shares ISA with them. So I thought, well, if I'm already with them and I've got two policies, maybe they'll give me a cheaper quote because, a comparable quote because I'm already a customer of theirs, because, you'd think they'd want that. So I went on to Aviva and did a quote direct, £560. Unbelievable. I also have my business insurance with Direct Line, which I took out last year. Now, Direct Line do not appear on comparison sites. You have to go direct. So I had to look at them direct, and despite having a policy with them, they were quoting me £480. So I decided I'm going to buy this insurance policy with Aviva for £200. It came in at £226.11. And then the day before I was going to buy it, and I ended up buying the policy a month before the renewal date, which is the beginning of February, because if they say there's an optimum time when you should be looking at your insurance, and mine is clearly about 4 to 5 weeks. Once I had got the initial quote through from Compare the Market, they kind of hold the quote for you for 30 days, but it doesn't mean that once you go into the company to buy the insurance that it won't have changed. And in the meantime, the day before, as I say, the day before I was due to buy the policy, I got my renewal quote through from eSure. Bearing in mind this year, I didn't have the auto renewal on, and they quoted me £247, which is quite a bit less than last year's £313. And I wonder if it's got anything to do with the auto renew, that if you have auto renew on your insurance, they can whack it up because they just assume you won't bother to cancel it. It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. So, always use comparison sites. They're all pretty much the same. I use Compare the Market because it's very popular and it's easy to use, but they're all pretty much the same, I think. Start looking, I would say start looking 5 weeks before your insurance is due. Optimum quotes tend to come through around about a month before. Of course, the problem with this is that you can set the insurance start date in the future. So I've set mine to the date when my my eSure quote insurance is due to end, so that I won't start eating into that insurance policy until I need it to. But you do have to pay for it early. And this is why I always try and keep a 0% interest credit card on the go, because I used my Jar Jar card, which I don't have to pay for until May. So I bought the insurance policy for my car 1 month early, but I don't have to actually pay for it until May, which is really great. So that gives me that extra bit of leeway. So yeah, start checking 5 weeks before. Use a comparison site, and don't assume that the quote that you're given way before your policy is due to expire is actually going to remain the same. You might hold on as long as you can and get to 2 weeks before, go in to use that quote, and when you go into the provider, the link provided with the comparison site, you'll suddenly find the insurance has jumped because you're getting really close to your policy, and they know that you're now in a situation where you're going to have to accept a policy. So it's worth planning ahead. It is absolutely worth planning ahead and buying in advance. I know that can be tricky if you have budgetary issues, but if you're doing that every year, I always buy an annual policy because I don't want to pay the fees on a monthly payment. And that, again, is why I always make sure that I know I have the money in the bank to pay for a policy up front, knowing roughly how much it's going to be. And also, if I can, I keep a 0% interest credit card simmering away for that purpose. So these are good things for you to remember when it comes to insurance time. 5 weeks before, buy it in advance, and make sure you have the money in the bank to do it. So I've managed to get my policy down to £226 this year, which is pretty good. Makes me happy. And provided nothing goes wrong with my car at MOT and service time, which is coming up at the end of March, my car will be the cheapest it's been to run since pre-pandemic. And that's really great. So I'm really happy with that. So that's my advice on car insurance. I hope you find that useful. And, yep, catch up with you again soon. Hope you found that helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.